We are less than a week away from Zenless Zone Zero's version 1.2 update, which also means we're getting really close to Caesar King's release. So today, we're going to go over all the info we have so far for Caesar King's kit to see how good she is and whether or not you should pull for her on your account. And for a quick answer, she is looking really good for what she's able to provide for a lot of teams, in all honesty. And for her kit here, we actually are going to be looking at it on Pridewin because they did have access to the creator experience stuff for Zenless Zone Zero. Now, I don't have access to any of that like early access stuff, so we do always appreciate them putting out all this information here. So Caesar is a physical attribute character with the defense specialty, and she is part of the Sons of Caledon faction. So we're finally going to be able, with Caesar's introduction, to be able to run a full Sons of Caledon team with Lucy and Piper, and then maybe slotting one of them out for Burnice when she comes out in the second half. So that's definitely going to be really cool. So going into her kit here, she definitely is very interesting as a defense character because she does actually have a good amount of support and benefits that she provides for the team, as well as just being able to have her parry as well, and her shields are looking to be really crazy. So let's start here with her core skill. So whenever she uses her EX special for her parry counter, if she uses her chain attack, her ultimate, or triggers the second part of her EX special with the retaliation effect, which this is all pretty much just part of her parry, she will buff the entire team by giving them a Radiant Aegis shield, which the amount of the shields equals to 1400% of her base impact stat plus an additional 1400. So these shields should be pretty substantial. And the shield will last for 90 seconds, which is pretty solid uptime. And it's going to be on the on-field character only, but the value of the shield is shared between all three of the characters on your team. So regardless of who's in, they'll have access to the shield. And also, it says any single instance of damage will not exceed the shield value, which I think that just means that if an attack is going to break your shield, the damage will not exceed however much shield you had left. So that's also really good to where once content gets harder, you won't get one shot through your shield. Like your shield, I mean, if stuff gets like really hard or your Caesar isn't as well invested, then you might take a bunch of damage, like shield damage, but you should still have the chance to reapply her shield after that. And also, while Radiant Aegis is active, you're going to get some extra anti-interrupt on this, which can be really good for characters like Piper, for example, who have a really long animation for one of their most important skills, which for Piper, she wants to use her special to spin and build up all that anomaly. So having some extra anti-interrupt will help her do that better. And also, the Radiant Aegis also gives an extra 1000 attack to whoever the on-field character is while the shield is up, which is really good. Plus, if the shield does expire, then you still have 5 additional seconds of the buff being active as well. So you can use that to minimize the downtime of this buff by just using that 5 seconds to bring Radiant Aegis back up. Then for her additional ability, whenever you have either another physical character or another Sons of Caledon team member, whenever you activate either her perfect block, retaliation through her parry, defensive assist, or her heavy basic attack, she will apply a debuff to enemies within 7 meters, which will make them take 25% increased damage for 30 seconds. So first of all, pairing this with the just 1000 attack from Radiant Aegis is also really good, especially since retaliation can trigger both of these effects. But when we get to this basic attack dead end, this becomes a lot better for a very big reason. So let's honestly not stall, let's get down to it because it is the next thing we're going to talk about here. Not going to focus on the regular basic attack because it doesn't really have any specific effects to it, but for her heavy attack here, you'll use an assist point to activate it, and it's going to attack all nearby enemies in all directions completely around her. Now, what it doesn't say here, but it does do, is when you use Dead End, it actually pulls those enemies in, which, depending on who you're using, could actually be really good because this is grouping all the enemies together. And the first thing I thought about when I saw the animation for this is Piper, because Piper is just going to be able to spin right away if you have the energy for her, because all the enemies are going to be in a circle around her anyway. So that's going to be extremely good. for just grouping and keeping enemies together so you can try to clear content more effectively. Now moving on to our dodge stuff. Not really going to focus too much on the dodge or dodge counter, but let's look at the dash attack here. So while you're doing a dodge, there's a regular dodge, you activate her dash attack, which will deal physical damage and also give you a 40% damage reduction during the dash attack. And when you are attacked by an enemy as well, you will actually block with the shield and be able to trigger retaliation through your skill, and also activate the special attack Roaring Thrust or EX special attack here as well, which is really good because not only are you going to be able to do her parry, but that's also going to activate the Radiant Aegis. So you're going to get all of the buffs up here as well, which is really good. So that's pretty much it for the dodge stuff, because dodge counter and regular dodge are just pretty standard for dodges. So now going to the assist. So the quick assist and defensive assist are pretty much what you expect out of them. The quick assist just deals some damage. Defensive assist gives a bunch of daze, which is very nice, and it helps you get closer to that stun. But for the assist follow-up here, after you defensive assist and you attack right afterwards, you'll be able to deal physical damage to the enemy, as well as you'll be able to press your skill immediately after to trigger retaliation, and that'll allow you to activate her special or EX special, which means that you're going to be able to get Radiant Aegis through this as well. So I do really like that she has ways to offensively get Radiant Aegis, so it's not just, oh, you have to wait for the opponent to attack, which, I mean, I guess for like the assist follow-ups and stuff like that, you do need them to attack you, but having more ways to trigger retaliation is also very nice, so that you can get as much of the buffs being active as possible. Now moving on to her specials. So her specials, these are all different things for her parries, but they are pretty much going to work pretty similarly to each other. So starting out with her base special, Shockwave Shield Bash, you're going to deal physical damage with this. This is when you don't have any, it should be when you don't have any meter really. You'll be able to, so once you get hit with this, you'll be able to trigger a perfect block, and will automatically follow up with Roaring Thrust, which we'll get into in a second over here. And after using the skill, you will still be able to guard, reduce incoming damage by 40% here as well, and also be able to trigger the retaliation there. And when you do trigger retaliation, Caesar is not, is invulnerable as well, which is still very nice to have an invulnerable move while you are using a counter. Then for the Roaring Thrust, which is the follow-up, you have to press your skill again, or your special attack again, which will deal more physical damage. And if you don't trigger either perfect block or retaliation, you're going to get some extra anti-interrupt. So regardless of whether or not you get the perfect block or retaliation, you are still getting a benefit from using this. And if you do have perfect block or retaliation, you do become invulnerable for this follow-up, which is also really good, so you don't take any extra damage. Then for the EX special, similar kind of thing here, where if Caesar's hit at the beginning of the activation or an interrupt is triggered, then it's going to automatically trigger perfect block, which will negate the incoming damage, which makes the EX skill really good as well, and will counter with a shield bash attack. And after you trigger that perfect block, you can press it again to activate her EX special follow-up here, the overpowered shield bash. And doing it this way through the EX special, this overpowered shield bash will not actually consume energy, which is really good. But I mean, it's gonna get better too once we get to what that's gonna do. And after using the skill, of course, she does enter that same guard stance, 40% damage reduction there, same as the other one, and you'll be able to block the attack and use her either special or EX special to trigger retaliation once again. Then for her EX special, follow-up here, the overpowered shield bash. So pretty much, it does work kind of similarly to the regular special, but the big benefit of this is that when you trigger the perfect block, when interrupt is triggered, it's not only going to negate the incoming damage once, but it's also going to recover the energy used to activate the skill, which means if using this correctly, you should be able to hold on to your energy pretty consistently with Caesar, which I think is really nice. And when you activate the skill through perfect block or retaliation, you won't be able to trigger perfect block and kind of loop it, which, I mean, this makes sense because at that point you'd just be looping perfect blocks and that would be kind of broken. So I don't blame them for that. Alright, and then for the stance switch over here, which is also part of it, whenever Caesar triggers either perfect block, retaliation, or defensive assist, she does get an impact increase for 3 seconds, which is also really good because it's going to benefit her Radiant Aegis shield and also impact her ability to inflict daze. So that is really good for her. Then lastly, for her chain attack and ultimate. So for her chain attack, you do get just a strike that hits enemies. You're invulnerable during it. It's nothing super crazy. Then for her ultimate, she also really just deals some increased daze damage. And this is the kind of ultimate where you're not really going to use it too much. In comparison, you probably do want to save it for your DPS to get the most damage out of them, since this ultimate doesn't really give us too terribly much outside of like the extra daze, which you should be hitting some decent daze anyway, since you will want to have a good amount of impact because of her Radiant Aegis shield, since that does seem to be what she scales on here. So that is what we have for Caesar's kit. I actually do really like it for her kit, but going on to the main topic here of whether or not you should pull for her. Now, I do think that she has amazing value for a lot of teams, given that you're able to activate her additional ability. So, because she does have the Radiant Aegis shield, that shield also gives her an attack buff, you get some anti-interrupt increase, and also that damage increase as well from her additional ability is also very helpful. And also, like I said earlier, you do get to use the full Sons of Caledon team if you're someone who's been waiting for that. So it definitely is a good investment if you already have some investment in Lucy and Piper to pick up Caesar. But then we will also have Burnice if you either don't have both Piper or Lucy, or you want to like slot one out for Burnice once we have her info. But overall, I think Caesar's just going to have a very comfortable play style. Not too much time out on the field, but really coming out to just try to get as much daze and keep up her shield and buffs as possible, and then swapping right back to your DPS to try to deal as much damage as possible. And honestly, I don't really have like a downside or a negative thing to say about Caesar. I think her kit is very good. I think she's going to age very well as well. But at least for me, I'm going to be skipping her, not because I don't like her, I think she's going to be really cool, but because Jane Doe took everything from me. And that's just the reality I gotta live in. So we probably will be skipping Caesar, but I'll have to look out for Caesar on the rerun, because I do also want to run that Sons of Caledon team. I've been using Piper and Lucy for a bit now, and they are really fun. But yeah, that is everything I have to say about Caesar. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, if you guys are going to pull for her. But with that, I want to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all next time.